The small Kylaxian pup trembled in the shadows of Outpost Sigma 9's maintenance sector. His fur, once a vibrant silvery blue with bright bioluminescent patches, had dulled over the past 3 days. Hunger gnawed at his belly. The pup, called Tay by his former owner, pressed himself deeper into the narrow space between waste containers as another group of traders passed by. Tay's sensitive ears twitched at their loud voices. None of them were his person, the kind human male who had rescued him from a research facility 6 cycles ago. The memory of the explosion that had destroyed their small transport ship replayed in his mind. His person had secured him in an escape pod moments before the cargo hold ruptured. The pod had automatically launched toward the nearest station, but his person never made it out. Now Tay was alone on this massive space station, filled with unfamiliar smells and dangers. Most species here viewed Kylaxians as either exotic pets worth a fortune on the black market or as pests to be eliminated. Neither option appealed to him. A maintenance bot whirred nearby, scanning for debris. Tay held perfectly still until it moved on. His telepathic abilities, still developing in his young age, picked up countless emotional impressions from passing beings, most too busy with their own concerns to notice a small alien hiding in the shadows. Tay's stomach growled painfully. He hadn't eaten since finishing the emergency rations in the escape pod. The food dispensers required credits or identification chips, neither of which he possessed. He had managed to lap water from a leaking coolant pipe, but it tasted strange and made his head spin. When the corridor emptied, Tay darted from his hiding place toward the lower levels. He had learned that food scraps could sometimes be found near the station's dining facilities. The risk of capture was high, but starvation was a certainty if he remained hidden. As he rounded a corner, he froze. A station security officer stood blocking his path. The uniformed human hadn't seen him yet, but would certainly spot him if he moved. Tay backed up slowly, his paw knocking against a small metal container. The sound echoed in the quiet corridor. The security officer turned sharply. "Who's there?" Tay bolted, his claws skittering on the smooth floor. He could hear the officer pursuing, calling into his communication device for backup. The pup's heart raced as he squeezed through a narrow maintenance hatch that the larger human couldn't follow through. Safe for the moment, Tay continued his search for food. The lower levels of the station were less maintained, with fewer surveillance systems. Perfect for a small stowaway, but also home to other dangers. Twice he had narrowly escaped larger predatory pets that some traders illegally kept aboard. Hours later, exhausted and weak, Tay found himself in a quiet corridor near the docking bays. The smell of food, real food, drew him forward. He followed his nose to where a ship had recently docked. Crew members were unloading supplies, including fresh provisions. One container had been left slightly open. Tay watched from behind a power conduit, waiting until the humans moved away. When the moment came, he darted forward, grabbed a small packet of dried protein, and retreated to safety. The food revived him somewhat, but he knew one small meal wouldn't sustain him for long. As Tay finished his meager feast, his ears perked up at new voices approaching, humans speaking softly, their tones different from the traders and security personnel he'd been avoiding. "The botanical samples on this station are remarkable, Captain Kim," said a female voice. "Some show adaptation to artificial gravity that I've never documented before." "Just be quick, Dr. Jaiwo," replied a deeper voice. "The horizon leaves in 3 days whether your research is complete or not." Tay peered around the corner. A group of humans wearing matching uniforms passed by. They smelled different, cleaner, with hints of plants and medicine rather than the usual station odors of fuel and recycled air. One human in particular, a female with kind eyes and gentle movements, caught his attention. As they passed, Tay felt a strange pull toward them. Without fully understanding why, he began to follow at a safe distance. Unlike the station security or traders, these humans moved with purpose but without menace. The female named Jaiwo stopped occasionally to examine plants growing in the station's hydroponic sections. Tay shadowed them through several corridors, staying just far enough behind to duck out of sight if any turned around. Something about the female named Jaiwo felt safe in a way nothing had since he lost his person. When the humans entered their ship, Tay settled into a hiding spot with a clear view of the docking bay. He would watch and wait. Perhaps these humans would leave scraps he could eat. Or perhaps, though he hardly dared hope, they might be looking for a Galaxian companion. Dr. Jaiwo can walk through the quiet corridors of Outpost Sigma 9. The station hummed with the soft sounds of life support systems and distant conversations. She carried samples of local plant specimens in her collection case, planning to analyze them back on the ship. Something made her pause, an odd feeling of being followed that had persisted throughout her 3 days on the station. She turned slowly, scanning the empty hallway behind her. Nothing seemed out of place, yet the sensation remained. Rather than continue to her scheduled meeting with Captain Kim, Jaiwoo decided to investigate. She pretended to focus on a small flowering plant growing from a crack in the wall while watching the shadows from the corner of her eye. There, a slight movement behind the cargo containers. Jaiwoo waited, her curiosity overcoming her caution. After a moment, a pair of luminous eyes blinked in the darkness. "Hello there," she said softly, kneeling down. "You can come out. I won't hurt you." The creature didn't move, but its eyes remained fixed on her. Jaiwoo reached into her pocket and pulled out a protein bar from her lunch. She broke off a small piece and placed it on the floor, then backed away several steps. Slowly, cautiously, a small animal emerged. Jaiwoo recognized it immediately as a Galaxian, a rare species known for their intelligence and telepathic abilities. The pup was thin, his silvery blue fur dull and patchy. The bioluminescent markings along his sides pulsed weakly. "You're starving, aren't you?" Jaiwoo whispered. The Galaxian inched toward the food, never taking his eyes off her. He snatched the morsel and retreated partially back into the shadows to eat. Jaiwoo placed another piece closer to herself. This time, the pup approached with slightly less hesitation. By the fourth piece, he was eating from her palm. Jaiwoo could feel a faint emotional impression touching her mind, not words, but feelings of desperate relief and cautious gratitude. "Where's your owner?" she asked, though she suspected the answer already. Galaxians formed deep bonds with their companions. This one wouldn't be alone unless something terrible had happened. The pup's ears drooped, and a wave of sadness washed over Jaiwoo's mind. "Clear enough. Station security would put you in quarantine," she said, thinking aloud. "Most likely sell you to a collector." She looked at her sample case, then back at the pup. "Do you want to come with me?" The Galaxian's ears perked up. His head tilted, considering her. Then, as if making a decision, he stepped forward and pressed his head against her hand. Sneaking an unauthorized alien species onto a research vessel broke at least 7 regulations. Jaiwoo knew this as she carefully placed the Galaxian into her sample case, leaving it partially open for air. The pup curled up obediently among her plant specimens, as if understanding the need for secrecy. Heart-pounding, Jaiwoo walked through security checkpoints with practiced calm. The guards barely glanced at her credentials before waving her through. Minutes later, she was back aboard the Horizon, hurrying to her private quarters. Once safe, she opened the case fully. The pup jumped out, exploring her room with curious sniffs. "We need to get you cleaned up and fed properly," Jaiwoo said, filling a bowl with water and finding suitable protein cubes from her field rations. "I'll call you Tae for now." Tae drank thirstily, his telepathic impressions radiating relief and gratitude. Jaiwoo used a medical scanner from her kit to check him for injuries. Besides malnutrition and mild dehydration, he seemed healthy. The door chime interrupted her examination. Captain Lee Juno stood in the doorway, face stern. "Dr. Kim, you missed our schedule," his words cut off as he spotted Tae. "What is that doing on my ship?" "He was abandoned on the station," Jaiwoo explained quickly. "Starving. They would have sold him to collectors." "Station regulations expressly forbid transport of unauthorized alien fauna," the captain said, though his eyes softened slightly as Tae approached him cautiously. "There are protocols. Protocols that would take weeks and end with him being classified as research property," Jaiwoo argued. "Galaxians are sentient, Captain." As if understanding her words, Tae sat down and looked up at Captain Lee. His bioluminescent markings pulsed in a pattern that seemed almost deliberate. A moment later, the captain's stern expression faltered. You felt that too? Jaiwo asked, noticing his reaction. A feeling of hope? The captain knelt down to examine Tae more closely. Their telepathic abilities are supposed to be minimal. Maybe they're stronger with humans, Jaiwo suggested. Captain, please. He has nowhere else to go. Juno sighed, looking from the hopeful face of his xenobiologist to the equally hopeful alien pup. 3 days, he finally said. Until repairs are complete. Then we decide his fate properly. As the captain left, Jaiwo knelt beside Tae, who was already looking healthier after food and water. 3 days to convince him, she told the Kylaxian, who tilted his head as if considering her words. But don't worry. I have a feeling you're going to fit right in here. Tae's ears perked up, and the impression that touched Jaiwo's mind was unmistakable: trust. 3 weeks had passed since Tae joined the crew of the Horizon. Captain Lee's 3 days had stretched longer when the small Kylaxian had helped Dr. Jaiwo organize her lab by retrieving specific plant samples when she named them. His intelligence was impossible to ignore, and his gentle nature had won over most of the crew. Tae's health improved rapidly under Dr. Jaiwo's care. His fur regained its silvery blue shine, and the bioluminescent patterns along his sides glowed brightly again. More remarkable was his developing telepathic ability. What had begun as simple emotional impressions had grown more complex each day. Dr. Park Hyun, the ship's medical officer, had taken a special interest in Tae's abilities. Each morning, he ran simple tests to measure the Kylaxian's progress. Try again, Dr. Park said, holding up a card with a simple shape drawn on it. He kept it hidden from Tae's view. What am I thinking of? Tae sat with his head tilted, ears perked forward in concentration. After a moment, he walked to Dr. Jaiwo's tablet and placed his paw on the screen. The drawing program opened, and using his claw, he carefully traced a square with a circle inside it. Dr. Park turned his card around, revealing the exact same pattern. Remarkable. That's 5 for 5 today. Jaiwo petted Tae's head proudly. His accuracy improves every session. I've been researching what little information exists about Kylaxians, Dr. Park said, making notes on his tablet. They were bred by an ancient species called the Vanir as companion animals. The Vanir valued emotional intelligence above all else. That explains his empathic abilities, Jaiwo nodded. But the Vanir disappeared thousands of years ago. How have Kylaxians survived? Adaptability, Dr. Park suggested. And finding new companions. Their conversation was interrupted when the ship's communication system activated. Captain Lee's voice came through clearly: senior officers to the bridge immediately. When Jaiwo arrived, the bridge was tense with activity. Navigation Officer Bay worked quickly at his console while the captain spoke with someone on the main screen. Tae had followed Jaiwo, staying close to her legs. We'll change course immediately, Captain Lee was saying. Expected arrival in 4 hours. When the transmission ended, he turned to his officers. Mining colony on Helios 7 has suffered a major collapse. 53 miners are trapped underground with failing life support. We're the closest vessel with medical facilities. What about rescue teams? Dr. Park asked. Local teams have been trying for hours without success, the captain replied. The collapse damaged their scanning equipment. They can't locate all the survivors. 4 hours later, the Horizon entered orbit around Helios 7, a small rocky planet rich in rare minerals. The mining colony was built into the side of a mountain, with tunnels stretching deep underground. When they landed, local officials greeted them with grim faces. We've found 27 survivors, the colony director explained as they walked toward the mine entrance. But sensors can't penetrate the lower sections. The rock contains too much mineral interference. Dr. Jaiwo noticed Tae becoming agitated as they approached the mine. His ears twitched rapidly, and his bioluminescent patterns flashed in an unusual rhythm. What's wrong? She asked, kneeling beside him. Tae looked toward the dark mine entrance, then back at her. The impression that touched her mind was unmistakable: people, trapped, afraid. Captain, Jaiwo called. I think Tae senses something. Captain Lee looked skeptical but nodded. Let him lead. We have nothing to lose. Deep in the mine, past where the rescue teams had been searching, Tay moved with surprising confidence. The rescue party followed with portable lights, breathing equipment, and medical supplies. The Kylaxians stopped at a solid rock wall that seemed to be a dead end. There's nothing here, one of the colony engineers said. Sensors show solid rock for 20 meters. But Tay pawed frantically at the wall, his markings pulsing urgently. He turned to Jaiwoo, and she felt a powerful impression of people just beyond. He insists there are survivors behind this wall, Jaiwoo told the others. I trust him. The captain hesitated only briefly before turning to the engineer. Bring the cutting equipment. It took 30 minutes to cut through the seemingly solid wall. When they broke through, they found what appeared to be an old maintenance tunnel. And inside, 7 miners huddled together, barely conscious but alive. They had found an air pocket where the life support system still partially functioned. As medical teams rushed to help the survivors, Captain Lee knelt beside Tay. How did you know? He asked, not really expecting an answer. To everyone's surprise, the impression that touched their minds was clear and precise. I heard their thoughts. They were calling for help. Dr. Park's eyes widened. That wasn't just emotion. That was a coherent thought. Jaiwoo smiled proudly as she watched the rescue operation. Communication breakthrough, she said, petting Tay's head. And just in time to save 7 lives. As they led the rescued miners out, word spread quickly through the colony. The humans had brought an alien who could hear thoughts through solid rock. By nightfall, Tay had become the hero of Helios 7, and no one questioned his place on the horizon anymore. The story of the Horizon's rescue mission on Helios 7 spread quickly through nearby systems. Most praised the crew's bravery and the remarkable abilities of their Kylaxian companion. But not all who heard the tale had good intentions. The Horizon docked at Waypoint Station Alpha for routine maintenance and resupply. After the intense rescue operation, the crew welcomed the short break. Dr. Jaiwoo used the time to document Tay's developing abilities while Captain Lee filed reports about their unscheduled detour. On the second day at the station, Officer Bay noticed an unusual vessel requesting docking permission. The registry seems legitimate, he told Captain Lee, but something feels off. They claim to be rare goods traders interested in scientific exchange. Captain Lee frowned at the scanner display. Keep an eye on them. Inform security to be alert. Later that day, 3 visitors came aboard the Horizon. Their leader, a tall man with sharp features, introduced himself as Min. His companions, a woman named Yuna and a heavy-set man called Day, smiled politely but their eyes constantly scanned the ship's interior. We heard about your successful rescue mission, Min said smoothly. Quite impressive to have found survivors when scanning equipment failed. Our crew worked well together, Captain Lee replied carefully, not mentioning Tay. Indeed. I understand you had some special assistance? Min's smile didn't reach his eyes. A Kylaxian, I believe? Before the captain could respond, Dr. Jaiwoo entered the meeting room. Tay followed close behind her, his ears alert with curiosity about the newcomers. When he saw the visitors, he froze, his bioluminescent patterns flashing rapidly in what Jaiwoo now recognized as alarm. Min's expression changed instantly. His polite smile became hungry, calculating. What a magnificent specimen, he said softly. Full-grown Kylaxians are rare enough, but one so well-trained? The Collectors Guild would pay a fortune. He's not for sale, Jaiwoo said firmly, stepping in front of Tay protectively. Everything has a price, Min replied. Perhaps you don't understand what you possess. Kylaxians with developed telepathic abilities are the rarest creatures in 3 sectors. I could offer your captain enough credits to upgrade this entire vessel. Captain Lee stood taller. As Dr. Kim said, he's not for sale. And he's not a possession, he's a crew member. Min's friendly facade dropped completely. Don't be foolish. It's an animal, not a person. Tay growled softly, the sound surprising everyone. Though small, his bared teeth reminded them that Kylaxians were predators before they were companions. I think this meeting is over, Captain Lee said. Officer Bay will escort you back to your vessel. The visitors left, but Tay remained agitated all evening. Jaiwo could feel his anxiety each time she touched him. That night, she decided to sleep in the lab where Tay usually stayed instead of returning to her quarters. Something about Min's intense interest in Tay left her deeply uneasy. Her instincts proved correct. Shortly after midnight, the ship's alarm blared. Jaiwo awoke to find Tay barking urgently at the lab door. The ship's computer announced, "Security breach in Section 3. Unauthorized personnel detected." Jaiwo quickly locked the lab door and activated her communicator. "Captain, someone's on board." "Stay where you are," came the immediate response. "Security team is responding." Through her bond with Tay, Jaiwo felt a wave of danger approaching. Moments later, the lab door control panel sparked as someone attempted to override the lock from outside. "They're trying to get in here," she reported, looking around for anything she could use as a weapon. The door slid open partway before jamming. Yuna, Min's companion, peered through the gap with a stun weapon ready. "Hand over the Kylaxian and no one gets hurt," she ordered. Jaiwo stood her ground. "He's not yours to take." As Yuna forced the door wider, Tay suddenly dashed forward, his small body glowing brightly in the darkened lab. The unexpected movement startled the intruder, giving Jaiwo time to grab a heavy specimen container and swing it hard. Yuna stumbled backward, losing her grip on the weapon. Throughout the ship, similar confrontations were happening. The crew of the Horizon, despite being scientists rather than soldiers, defended their ship with surprising effectiveness. Even the normally quiet Dr. Park was found standing over an unconscious Day, holding a medical scanner like a club. When security finally contained all three intruders, Captain Lee assembled them in the cargo bay, surrounded by armed officers. Attempted theft, assault on crew members, unauthorized boarding, the captain listed their offenses coldly. The station authorities are already preparing detention cells. Min, despite his failure, kept his composure. "You're making a mistake. That Kylaxian doesn't belong with humans. There's a place where his kind still exists, a colony on New Gaia in the Outer Rim. That's where he belongs." As station security led the collectors away, Captain Lee looked thoughtfully at Jaiwo and Tay. Could he be telling the truth? About other Kylaxians? Jaiwo knelt beside Tay, whose ears had perked up at Min's words. The impression from his mind was clear, hope mixed with uncertainty. "I think," Jaiwo said slowly, "we should find out." The Horizon's engines hummed steadily as the ship approached the outer rim planet known as New Gaia. Captain Lee had initially hesitated to change their mission parameters based on information from criminals, but Tay's obvious interest had swayed him. For 3 weeks, they traveled through rarely used jump points, following coordinates extracted from Min's ship computer. Dr. Jaiwo spent the journey studying everything she could find about Kylaxian biology and behavior. There wasn't much, just fragments from ancient texts and rumors from traders. No one had documented a Kylaxian colony in official records for centuries. What if it's just another trap? Officer Bay asked during their final briefing. But collectors could have allies waiting. "We'll approach with caution," Captain Lee replied. "Long-range scans first, then a small landing party if it looks safe." Tay sat beside Jaiwo during the meeting, his attention fixed on the holographic display of New Gaia. His bioluminescent patterns pulsed with what she now recognized as excitement. "Are you ready to meet others like yourself?" she asked him softly. The impression that touched her mind was complex eagerness mixed with something like hesitation. After weeks of growing telepathic communication, Jaiwo understood, Tay was excited to find his kind, but afraid of losing his new family. New Gaia revealed itself as a beautiful world of vast forests and clear lakes. Orbital scans showed no large cities, just scattered settlements across the temperate zones. One settlement, built in a valley surrounded by crystalline formations, showed energy signatures consistent with modest technology. "I'm detecting approximately 40 non-human life forms that match Tay's biological patterns," Dr. Park reported. "And around 60 humans." Captain Lee looked surprised. Humans living alongside Kylaxians? Voluntarily? The landing party consisted of Captain Lee, Dr. Jaiwoo, Dr. Park, and Officer Bay for security. Tae refused to be left behind, practically dancing with excitement as the shuttle descended through the atmosphere. They landed in a clearing half a kilometer from the settlement. As they walked through the forest, Jaiwoo noticed the unusual silence. No birds or insects, she observed. Odd for such a lush environment. Not odd, came a voice from ahead. Just different communication methods. A woman stepped from behind a large tree, smiling warmly. She wore simple clothes made from local materials. Behind her stood a Galaxian adult, nearly twice Tae's size, with fully developed luminescent patterns. "Welcome to New Gaia," the woman said. "I'm Kong Yunha. This is my companion, Duri." Tae froze, staring at the adult Galaxian. The larger creature approached slowly, touching noses with Tae in greeting. The air seemed to shimmer between them as they communicated in ways humans couldn't perceive. "How did you find us?" Yunha asked as she led them toward the settlement. "A rare animal collector mentioned this place," Captain Lee explained. "After they tried to steal Tae from our ship." Yunha nodded grimly. "Collectors have been our biggest threat for generations. That's why we stay hidden." The settlement was simple but beautiful, with homes built to accommodate both human and Galaxian needs. As they walked through the central area, Jaiwo noticed several pairs, each consisting of one human and one Galaxian, working together on various tasks. In a large central building, they met the community leader, Jin Miho, a man with kind eyes and gray hair. "Galaxians and humans have lived together here for over a century," he explained. "After the collectors nearly hunted Galaxians to extinction, our ancestors created this sanctuary." "Why humans specifically?" Dr. Park asked. The records suggested they were companions to another species. "The Vanir bred them," yes, Miho confirmed. But after the Vanir disappeared, Galaxians discovered that humans are uniquely compatible with their telepathic abilities. "Something about our brain patterns resonates with theirs." Throughout the day, Tae explored the settlement, playing with other Galaxians and communicating in ways that left the Horizon crew feeling oddly excluded. Jaiwo watched with mixed emotions as Tae rolled and jumped with his own kind, looking happier than she'd ever seen him. That evening, Jin Miho approached Jaiwo as she sat alone, watching the sunset. "Your Galaxian has formed a strong bond with you," he said. "He's not mine," Jaiwo replied softly. "I think this is where he belongs. With his own kind." "Is that what he wants?" Miho asked. "Or what you think is best for him?" Before she could answer, Tae appeared, pressing against her legs. The image in her mind was crystal clear: the horizon, traveling among stars, with Tae by her side. "He's choosing you," Miho explained. "Galaxians only bond once in their lifetime. He's already chosen his person. But shouldn't he stay with his own kind?" Jaiwo asked, tears forming in her eyes. "You are his kind now," Miho said simply. "Not all Galaxians stay here. Some, like Tae, choose to explore the galaxy with their human companions. That is their purpose, to form bonds that bridge worlds." The next morning, as the Horizon prepared to depart, several community members approached Captain Lee with a proposal: an exchange program between New Gaia and the broader human worlds. Tae's rescue had opened a door to new possibilities. As the ship lifted off, Jaiwoo stood at the viewport with Tae beside her. Below, several Galaxians glowed brightly in farewell patterns. Tae responded with his own light display, then turned to nuzzle Jaiwoo's hand. "Home isn't always where you were born," she told him, understanding now what he had been trying to tell her all along. "Sometimes it's where you choose to belong." Tae's answer came clearly to her mind: "You are my home now."